Good morning, June 26, 2021, Saturday, 5:42 a.m. This is podcast episode number 6, Index Investing with Dr. Stephen Pamatmat, aka the White Coat Investor. Good morning, guys. Happy summer and record highs naman tayo sa markets. This is Mark Yu,
And this is Wawi Santos.
and welcome to the Mark Yu and Wawi Show. I hope you guys, our listeners, have had a great and productive week so far. So just a reminder before we proceed with our podcast, our special episode this weekend, we are available in YouTube, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. So if you guys are busy, we're always on the go. You could always download our episode and listen to it, twice the speed. What do you think, Kuya Wawi? That way they can catch up with our episodes.
Yeah. Well, I'm in Colony right now and still broadcasting for everyone over there.
There you go. So walang weekend off, Kuya Wawi. He's always dedicated and he always finds time to share information to our listeners, which we are
Just like you.
which we are thankful for. Sabagay, kasi we are maintaining at least 50 to 70 views per episode and we treasure each and every one of you. And thank you for sharing and liking. So on our previous episode, we discussed the importance of cost averaging, looking at the current state of the market, looking at some tech stocks outperforming the banks and other reopening stocks. If you feel like trying to catch up with what we will be discussing today, you might want to go back to our previous episode and briefly listen to it. And we appreciate all the feedback that you guys have provided. So on this week's episode, we have our first ever special guest with us today, this morning,
Yes.
to help us understand how index investing works and share his thoughts about market. So this person is a very special person. He's a kababayan. He's a graduate. Just some information about him. He's a graduate of Bachelor of Science of Psychology and Doctor of Medicine at the University of Santo Tomas. He received chess scholarship as a member of the University of Santo Tomas varsity chess team. He's currently practicing a nephrologist in Tyler, Texas. He's also a financial chess coach, and currently he's enrolled at University of Texas Austin Dalton Education to become a certified financial planner. In addition, our special guest today, he's also planning to pursue the certified financial planner certification education at UT Austin. So to our listeners of the Marky and Wawi Show, we are honored to have your company today this morning, sir. And thank you for accepting our invitation. Let me introduce to you guys Dr. Stephen Pamatmat, aka the White Coat Investor.
Oh, hi, Mark. Hello. Wawi, good morning also.
Good
Good
morning,
morning.
Doc. Thank you for sharing your time this morning to us, Doc.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. Finally, Mark, nag-meet tayo. We just been communicating through your group sa Messenger.
I know we have to our listeners. We have this small group which is growing. I think we're around 20 or 30 people in there, and we all have the interest in investing in the stock market. And from time to time, Doc, we always look up to your information that you share to us. Because most of the time, me and Kuya Wawi, usually we tend to pursue going to specific stocks. But on the other hand, you always kind of bring us to the ground and remind us the importance of the value of index investing.
Yes. Kasi I'm more of a proponent of index fund investing. But it's a good, kumaga, it's the other side of the coin in terms of investing.
Right.
And
Mhm.
I usually my objective is also to promote financial literacy. And congratulations sa podcast mo. I mean, I think it should grow.
Oh, appreciate that, Doc. And not so long ago, Doc, I think it was last week when Kuya Wawi had shared the information, Doc, that you were nominated as one of the financial proponents of index investing in your field, in the medical doctor field, physician field.
Yes. See, I've been doing some financial education,
Right.
I would say since 2010. Okay.
Wow. Uh-huh.
But it's not exactly my professional work. Okay,
Right,
it's
right,
just my personal. I would say uh, mission
right.
na ma-share ko yung aking financial knowledge sa mga kababayan natin.
That's really nice, Doc. Some of us, we just go to work and usually we wonder how, or, eventually we could retire with enough money to at least, sponsor our our living, continuing expenses over time.
Well, I was in the same boat before. I was also an immigrant. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so I could tell na I would say share my personal journey and experience when
Cool,
I came
yes.
from the here in the States,
Hmm.
from the Philippines.
Wow. Yes, Doc. So, would you be able to at least start off with what defining at least to our listeners and to us, me and Kuya Wawi, what is index investing all about?
Okay. Well, I think I would share my some of my old slides so that
Okay.
we could have some sort of parang outline
Yes, definitely. Uh-huh.
para mas maintindihan siguro ng ating mga listeners.
Okay,
All
Doc.
right. So
Sure.
let me pull up my slide and share it with you.
All right.
Okay. Let me just okay. Nakita niyo ba yung slides?
Yes, Doc. It's clear.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Let me see if oh, I think aking i-skip ko yung ibang slides, okay?
Yes, Doc. Yeah,
But
go ahead.
obviously itong disclosure ko na hindi ako licensed accountant or attorney or
Sure, definitely.
any kind of financial advisor, just to be aware yung mga listeners mo, okay?
Definitely. Yes, Doc.
Yeah. Ang aking main job is a practicing nephrologist. Okay? Then I hold a number of positions. I'm also a current president ng foundation
Hmm.
ng here in the States. Ito yung aming medical fraternity.
Ah. Mhm.
Tapos fiduciary chairman and member din on a number of investment committee.
Wow.
UST Foundation, saka dito sa aming company, yung Thaler Nephrology.
So, Doc, just to clarify to some of our listeners that are not in the medical professional field, itong nephrologist field, it's a more specialized practice.
Yeah,
Actually.
buddy, I'm a kidney specialist. I take care of patients mostly on dialysis, yung mga may
Right.
kidney failure. Yeah,
Got it. Mhm.
yeah. And good, just be open to ask questions as we go on. Okay?
Yes, Doc.
Uh, ito siguro yung background ko bago ako nagsimula ng financial education.
Mhm.
Kasi lahat ito naging I would say influenced how I'm now in my current position.
Wow.
Okay.
Mhm. I could say, Doc, that you've been through a lot,
Yes,
to
exactly.
say the least.
I mentioned being a chess player when I learned chess at the age of 6 because without chess, hindi ako naging doktor eh. Because UST gave me, I mean, alam nyo naman, ang medicine, it's too expensive sa Pilipinas.
Mhm.
And I was brought up, I mean, like I would say middle class family. Okay. My parents could not afford me to go to medical school. So I have to pursue other means
Right.
to at least fund my own education. So kaya when I got into playing chess, so at least sa Pilipinas, they offered some sort of scholarship. So that's why I mentioned it. Okay. Then I finished just you mentioned, I graduated at University of Santo Tomas, BS Psychology and
Mm.
Doctor of Medicine. Yung psychology kasi sa investing, you need to have some sort of psychological influence in making decision, di
Right.
ba?
Yes, Doc. I agree with that. Like, in fact, last week, me and Kuya Wawi Santos actually discussed the different market sentiments. Like we're looking at, in terms of like ano ba yung iniisip ng investor about the stock market at this point of time?
Kaya nga eh. So dumating ko sa New York noong 1993. So by that time, wala pa talagang mga, I would say, online investing unlike today. Wala pang ETF noon.
Uh-huh.
Eh, New York I would say the mecca of Wall Street, di ba? Kaya
Definitely.
a big influence sa akin nung dumating ako sa New York. I was so naive. During that time, the only thing that I know about saving is going to open a bank account, di ba?
Right. Yes.
Yun na lang alam ko sa Pilipinas eh. Sabi ng parents ko, oh, mag-ipon ka pag meron trabaho ka na. So, but then nung sa New York, ang I was just waiting for matching, like yung magkaroon ako ng work.
Mhm.
So I was watching this CNBC, yung
Oh, okay. So may CNBC na nun, Doc. At least ano, parang may financial shows na, mga
oh,
ganun.
yun na nga eh. Na-intrigue ako eh. Kasi at
Right.
least, pag chess player ka, para bang, aba, how could I make money here? Di ba?
Right.
So, so na-motivate akong to educate myself, okay? So, I went to the library, did my homework, like, talagang nagbasa ako ng mga kung ano ng mga uh, uh, about investing.
Right. And during this time, you have to go really to library to learn kasi wala pang Google nun. Ano?
Oh, wala pang Google noon. Very old-fashioned. Kaya
Wow.
reading magazines, yung Wall Street newspaper.
Wow.
So those are my resources during that time.
Right.
Okay. So and what I learned then is buying individual stocks is
Mhm.
definitely I could not afford it. Okay? Kasi no, napakamalang commission ng each transaction.
Mhm.
You buy a certain stock, you have to go to certain broker,
Mhm.
and each transaction you have to pay some sort of commission fee.
Uh-huh.
And I was just starting. I definitely I could not afford to pay someone to
Mhm.
do my own investing. Okay.
I think it's
So
like right. Go ahead, sir.
so that's why I focus on mutual fund that time. Okay.
Mhm.
So I bought my first mutual fund when I was 29 years old. Then from
Wow.
there,
Uh-huh.
it kind of grow, okay, and then until I became a nephrologist and focus on how to achieve financial freedom.
Wow.
So that's a little bit of background ng aking uh, introduction sa financial world,
Right.
okay?
Mhm.
And my objective is always making investing simple and cost efficient. And
Mhm.
just like I said, I my mission is to promote financial literacy.
Mhm.
All right, let's talk
Steve,
about
out of
investment. Yeah.
curiosity, what was your first mutual fund buy?
Nung
Oh,
that time,
magandang tanong to.
yes,
Oh,
Yes, Doc. What's your first mutual fund?
you'll be surprised. It was S&P 500.
Oh, wow.
okay.
And you know what? Ito lang yung aking ano eh, parang personal joke, okay? Why I chose S&P 500 kasi I was very naive. It's
Uh-huh.
because it's my initial name.
Oh, ano? S&P 500.
And I would say I mean, di ko talaga alam. But I just kind of, ano man sa atin, uso yung brand name, di ba?
Yes.
Kaya sabi ko, lagi ko naririnig S&P 500, Dow Jones, Nasdaq.
Yeah.
Ano kaya itong S&P 500? It's my initial name. Might as well explore that one.
Exactly. At mukhang, Doc, mukhang you didn't make a wrong decision in
Yeah.
looking to.
And that time, di pa si Warren Buffett, I did not know him that time.
Right.
Okay, so
Mhm.
when you say investing, we're talking about Wall Street, okay?
Right.
And I knew then any kind of investing, there's always high risk. But
Mhm.
if there's risk, there should always be a reward. Di ba?
Yes.
Okay, so you asked about what is a stock index investing.
Right. Index
Okay.
investing. Uh-huh.
So maybe I'll give, eto, nowadays talagang ang alam lang natin is, especially do sa mga new investors or talagang very just starting to know about investing, what they're very familiar would be these three major indices states. Okay,
Uh-huh.
and actually this was the one that I got my attention when I first arrived here in the States. Okay,
Mhm.
ito nga yung Dow Jones, S&P 500, Nasdaq.
Mhm.
Okay, so so when I did my research, apparently Dow Jones is the oldest index in the States.
Uh-huh.
Okay? Kita mo history niya since 1900.
Right.
And
Wow.
then during that time, as you can see, all the itong graph na to, it even though there's some downfall, it continued to rise. Okay?
Mukhang bumabawi siya over time.
Over time. At meron pang isang comment, every 17 years, nagpa-flat siya. Then after 17 years, doon siya go grow.
Mhm.
So in 2017, ang trajectory niya will go up. Kaya 2021, di ba? Kaya
Ah,
we could see this historic high numbers every time there's like a breakout ng S&P 500, you kind of mention it.
right. Yes.
Well, Dow Jones, throughout the years, nagbabago to eh.
Mhm.
Kumbaga yung ano ng Dow Jones is just 30 stocks
Right.
na within Dow Jones, okay?
Mhm.
Pero from the start of the Dow Jones, yung original members nun, nawala na siya.
Mhm.
So, ngayon, ang huling na umalis, imagine ExxonMobil,
Right.
na, well, no, pero natanggal sa Dow Jones. Because
Yeah.
there are certain criteria to be part of these major indices.
Mhm.
Okay? Then, yun nga, like yung last year pandemic, kita mo kung parang roller coaster ride ang mga indices. Eh.
Yeah. Everything was falling last
Yeah.
year.
Like, so imagine itong Dow Jones in 1932, 41 lang yung kanyang value. Pero as you go on, it will just uh, it will just go up and down, and
Mhm.
then another indices yung S&P 500, di ba? This one is
Yes.
500 largest company naman.
Right.
Okay? It
Yes.
started in 1923, then expanded in 1957. Tapos,
1923. Uh-huh.
yeah, then ang components niya, ito yung top 10 components ng S&P 500. Okay? So,
Like look at
well
it
known.
looks yeah, it looks like it's a biggest of the big or largest
Yep,
of the largest
Microsoft,
company.
Apple, Amazon, nandyan lahat yan eh.
Right.
So at the same time, kita mo, no 1950, 16 points lang siya. Pero I don't know, yesterday yata, it it beat another record
Yes.
history.
Yes, Doc.
Okay.
As of yesterday, let's see. Yesterday it closed at 4280, 4,280.
Alright, kita mo, nung 1950, 16 points siya. Pero I would, nung dumating ako sa States, 1997,
Uh-huh.
904, and binili ko yung S&P 500. Kita mo, I would say, let's say, nasa 900, ngayon nasa 4,000.
Right.
More than 4,000. So
More
you
than-
can imagine the appreciation of this index.
It's more than quadrupled since you've started, Doc.
Yep. And then, ito yung isang graph in 20 years, kung talaga na-beat niya yung over 20 years, more than 300 points, 300% ang kanyang appreciation.
300. Wow. Uh-huh.
Then another index is itong Nasdaq. Pag Nasdaq naman, ito yung mga technology stocks eh.
Okay, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was launched in 1951. Nagsimula yan ng 50 companies. Ngayon, more than 2,000 companies na.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But they are more focused sa mga technology upcoming companies.
Exactly.
So, yung the same companies sa S&P 500, nandito rin sa Nasdaq.
Right.
Ganon.
And from what I know, watching a movie doc yung about Bernie Madoff, yung Ponzi scheme.
Oo.
I found out through that movie that that guy actually started, or one of the people who started the Nasdaq index during his prime.
Okay.
Mhm.
Ayun nga, Nasdaq, ganun din, oh. Ang kanyang valuation noong 1971, 100 points. Ngayon,
Just
more than
100.
14,000.
Wow. Flat even, no, Doc. 100. Start with 100
Yeah,
and it just grew.
exactly. At yun nga lang, like yung 2002, kita mo, from yung 2000, from 5,000, biglang baksak naman ng 1,000, but they recovered.
Wow.
And ngayon, di ba, closing value niya yesterday, it was more than 14,000 yata.
Yes, Doc. 14,345 as of Friday, yesterday.
Yeah, so just imagine if you just invest in a Nasdaq index fund noong 1995. Almost ang value ng pera mo, di ba?
Wow.
Yung nga lang, there's always downturn, but there's always recovery.
Right.
Ito yung nga yung graph ng three differences ng three indices, ng Dow Jones, S&P 500, Nasdaq. Meron silang, parang nagko-correlate naman sila eh.
Looks like they go in tandem somehow, Doc.
Exactly. So it's just always a roller coaster ride. Okay, so ito yung indices, ano lang siya, yung parang guidelines lang ng mga investor o kaya ng mga kung how nagre-reflect ang economy ng US. Yun lang yon. But then to really invest in those components, you have to buy index fund that reflects ng indices. Okay? So yung index fund talaga yung doon ka talaga bibili ng how to invest. Okay? So may tinatawag na exchange traded fund, tapos may tinatawag na index fund. Okay? So index fund is more of a passive investing. So meron siyang manager, they're not going to pick any stocks on their own. Kumbaga, ang bibilin lang stocks, it depende kung anong companies ang member ng specific index. So may ETF na Dow Jones, so the manager would just buy all those 30 companies. So he doesn't do any kind of research. Tapos may ETF din ng Nasdaq, S&P 500, and then yung tinatawag na total market index. Ibig sabihin, lahat ng mga companies na being traded publicly, they will just buy all those stocks. Okay? So, kahit nga si Warren Buffett, a famous, I would say, stock picking investor. Parang guru siya. He knows how to buy or a certain company. He advocated to buy low-cost index funds sa mga, I would say, novice investor.
Right.
And I didn't know this one. Nung nagsimula ako, sabi ko, I could not afford to buy individual stock. Might as well buy a combo.
Right.
Dito sa States, uso yung combo. Pag pumunta sa McDonald's or meron anong French fries, Coke, it served, I'm more of like cost efficient Mas nakakamura ka pag combo ang bili mo
Makes sense, Doc. Yes, if you want to be like exposed to a lot of like options or investments.
At saka meron kang instant diversification kagad
Yes.
And then during my time na nagsisimula ako, ang ginagawa rin ni Warren Buffett before he buy a specific company, there's a certain team na pumupunta mismo do sa company no. Let's say, for example, bibili siya ng just for example, yung bibili siya ng bagong company that will I would say sell hamburger, kunwari lang. Then a certain team will go to that store and eat that burger, make sure that it will grow or something. So, kumbaga, to do a research, you really have to have your own experience about the company.
Right. Parang like the fundamentals behind how actually the company makes money.
Yes, exactly. So, and I could not afford that. Then one thing, I'm a busy practitioner, so I have
Right.
no time to do my research on isang specific company. Then it's
Mm.
well known there are companies na if it doesn't make it, they will go to bankruptcy.
Right.
Like Enron, even yung mga WorldCom, if you remember, I don't know if you
Ah,
remember, in
for
MCI, those
yes.
are big companies before na went to bankruptcy.
For Enron, I watched a documentary back in I think early what around 2011 about how they kind of like manipulated the markets and make their shareholders believe that they were generating profits, whereas they weren't.
Yeah, kaya very wary talaga ako pag bibili ng individual stocks eh.
Right.
Kasi one thing I fear is losing money, di
Uh-huh.
ba?
Yes.
Your hard-earned dollars. So, and then yung history ng indices, like just like I mentioned earlier, since 1900, 1950, yung
Mm-hmm.
S&P 500, they never went to bankruptcy.
Right.
So, so that's why ang focus ko talaga lagi is index fund investing.
That
Yun yung
makes sense.
reason ko.
Yes.
Especially if you're just starting, let's say I started like $50, $100 a month.
Mm-hmm.
So nowadays you can participate in the investing by you don't need a lot of money actually to start or opening an account.
Mm-hmm.
So kahit ito nga isang graph na to isang famous graph na even Berkshire Hathaway, he did
Mm-hmm.
not beat the S&P 500.
Oh, okay. So it underperformed.
Yeah, ito yung kita mo yung blue chart ni yung kay
So that's
Warren
Berkshire.
Buffett.
Yes.
Okay? So very interesting. Even the guru of individual stock picker
Mm-hmm.
could not even beat the S&P 500 at saka yung total stock market.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So that's why ano ko parang uh, yun ang aking ano I would say major holdings ko is just index fund.
Right.
Okay? So just like I said, ang index fund is just tracking the components of a market index.
Mm-hmm.
So kung meron ng S&P 500, then just those index fund will have the ang kanyang holdings yung 500 companies lang
Mm-hmm.
na nandoon.
In
Okay, so
top 500 companies in the US.
yes, it provides you a broad market exposure already. Then
Right.
diversified ka na, then you have low operating expenses and there's low portfolio turnover. It's very important in turnover because every time you make a transaction, you have to pay some sort of commission.
Right.
So it's a passive investment strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And this is more ideal do sa mga passive investor who had a strong long-term uh, returns and also those these are catered for those buy and hold investors. Hindi ito sa mga day traders.
Right.
Okay, so the way I evaluate mutual funds, like ko tinitingnan yung kanyang expense ratio.
Uh-huh.
Tapos yung kanyang net asset, then kung anong total holdings niya. So I always look for the cost kasi yung after cost yung talaga na iiwan na profit mo eh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Besides cost, yung taxes din, kailangan may, ano ka rin.
So it's like when you buy into these funds, one thing you need to consider is the commission, of course. Where nowadays, Doc, correct me if I'm wrong, like most of the brokers are no longer asking for any commission. Actually, it's for free, right?
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
And
Kaya
then,
nga pag yung mga naglalaban-laban yung mga ano competing each other trying to lower down their costs.
right. And
Kaya
then,
buying individual stocks, a
right.
number of them doesn't ask for commission fees.
Right. And then you just mentioned, Doc, about the expense ratio on these
Yeah.
things. Mhm.
Mm. Kaya nga, before you, if you want to invest, you need to open an account sa isang broker,
Uh-huh.
okay? But choosing a brokerage firm, napakarami ngayon eh, di ba? May
Yes, Doc.
E-Trade, may Fidelity. So they're competing sa mga, meron pang Robinhood eh.
right. The Robin Hood.
So,
Infamous.
kaya nga eh. So, may dalawang types ng brokerage firm dito sa States. May tinatawag na discount brokerage saka may full service.
Mhm.
Yung example ng full service like yung mga Merrill Lynch, okay?
Right.
Then ang mga discount brokerage firm, yung like Vanguard, Fidelity. Pero kasi ang discount brokerage firm catered to sa mga do-it-yourself investor. So, kaya nga discount brokerage, you select your own index fund or individual stocks, okay?
Right.
You do your own research. Pag yung mga full service, they will manage your own money. You just have to deposit your capital investment, then they will handle that one.
It's like parang it's similar to like a 401k or retirement account, whereas hands-free. Once you put your money there, parang they'll take charge of the investments.
Actually, not exactly. Okay, ang 401k is just like it's just an account. Okay, na retirement account. Okay,
Right.
because I participate 401k, but there are also choices na you can do your own investing. However, in difference ng 401k, they don't offer to buy to invest in individual stocks. So yung company will choose a certain brokerage firm. Like sa company ko, ang ino-offer namin firm brokerage is Vanguard, okay?
Okay.
Then there are a number of index fund and mutual funds being offered sa mga employees to select kung anong gusto nilang funds. Then if they cannot select, there's like a default na target retirement account.
Right.
So hindi siya talaga full service broker.
Got it. Okay.
So a 401k is just an account that you tax deferred or tax free investing under the umbrella of a retirement account.
I see.
Yeah. Okay. So tulad nung ito lang example ng simple investing namin. Ito yung yung investing nung sa foundation namin because I'm the one managing our investing holdings sa foundation. So tatlong index fund ang inano namin, inallocate in total stock market index, which is consists of US stocks, okay?
Yes.
And then merong international stocks, then US bonds. So itinatawag na lazy portfolio.
Right.
At sa atin mo, ang expense ratio tinitingnan ko, ang BTI, this is the stock symbol, 0.03%. Then anong net asset niya? 1.1 trillion.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, the assets are a lot, but in comparison, the expense ratio, it's even less than 1/10 of 1%.
Yes.
0.03% of this is in terms of the assets that you're gonna be investing in with them, right?
Yeah. So the worry that it will go to bankruptcy, almost obviously there's no 100% guarantee, but at least compare mo sa kung bibili ako ng individual stock, I would rather go with this index fund kasi I don't have to, at least less worried na baka mawala yung pera ko, di ba?
Right, Doc. It's like
And then,
like what you said earlier, it's diversified, not just invested in one solid stock, but it's like scattered and diversified throughout the market.
Yes, like ang total holdings niya, 3,600, more than 3,600 companies na. So nandiyan na rin yung Tesla, nandiyan na rin yung Microsoft. So usually ang ginagawa ko, ito parang reflection to ng Dow Jones. Pagbagsak ang Dow Jones, usually itong total stock market index will go down also. Pero pag high siya. So at saka meron ng automatic investing dyan. So I made it simple and yung kahit busy sa work ko, at least my money is working on its own.
Right. Yeah.
Ngayon, kung gusto mo naman ma-expose sa international companies, meron din silang index fund that. I remember, Wawi, tatanong ka doon sa company about sa Japanese holdings, di ba?
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah. I was looking at that last podcast.
Yeah, so just like I said, kung gusto ko na expose, actually I have exposure sa international stocks, pero mas mahirap mag-research ng ano ng specific company or specific country.
Right.
Pag na-invest ka sa index fund ng international stocks, meron ka na exposure sa Europe, sa Asia. So nandiyan na rin yung mga China, Japan.
I
So
see.
that's the way I do it, okay?
Uh-huh.
For
So
me,
this
the
is the International Stock Index Fund, ticker VXUS.
US, these are offered by the Vanguard company, okay?
Uh-huh.
So just ang disclosure ko nga, hindi ako agent ng Vanguard. This is just for illustration only.
Right. And
Okay?
then looking at their expense ratio, it's at 0.08%. So if you invested $10,000, so 0.08% of that, maybe $8
Yep.
a year. A year
Oo.
ang charge nila.
Kaya nga. Tapos doon sa mga, yung I would say, getting close to retirement, some of them you can expose yourself sa bonds, okay?
Mm,
Pero ngayon kasi mababa ang yield ng bonds ngayon eh.
exactly, Doc. It's just
Kaya,
ever going down.
yep.
Mhm.
All right. So yun lang naman yung parang background ng index fund. Okay?
Mhm.
Uh,
Doc Stephen,
yes.
so your allocation dun sa sa bond, can you share with our listeners how much you allocated for your VB TLX?
Okay. Well, sa personal holdings ko, wala akong bonds eh.
Mhm.
I see.
Kasi siguro dahil I'm confident sa total stocks holdings na
Mhm.
100% stocks exposure ako.
Right.
Yun. Kasi ang bonds is mostly parang just giving you fixed income eh.
Mhm.
So, and I mean, this is just my personal I don't advocate na yung iba wag mag especially those sa novice, okay?
Right.
But if I have a regular job, yun ay parang aking passive income. It's my job. I receive monthly income,
Right.
gano'n.
And I think you have a good point, very good point, Doc. Because if you're gonna be buying stocks and you're thinking for the long term, investing for the long term, stocks, as me and Kuya we discussed before, and as you've shown in your recently in charts, it just grows over time. Like whereas yung bonds, they will give you just at this point of time, I looked it up in Google. It's 30-year bonds of the government yields at 2.1% a year. So more likely, medyo it's a lot less, probably a lot safer, pero a lot less in comparison to when investing in an index fund.
Yeah, exactly. At saka, for me, kahit ano namang klaseng, like index fund or kaya individual stocks, these are just tools for you
Hmm.
para sa goal mo eh. So, sa mga listeners natin, I think it's first thing you go into investing, you have to define your financial objective or goal. Okay?
Mhm.
So, for me, for example, ang goal ko, halimbawa, pag retirement account, ang vehicle ko is yung 401k saka IRA.
Mhm.
Okay? Yun ang mga, kasi you delay your paying taxes, but nowadays, yung mga there's an option that you could select Roth IRA if you're qualified. Pero pag 401k ka, meron din silang Roth 401k.
Mhm.
Okay? And then from that account, you can select index fund or mutual funds to invest to. Okay? Ang pinaka mo din is, ang aking is you accumulate number of shares rather than number of index fund. Eh. So ang
Mhm.
401k ko, isang index fund lang ko, S&P 500 lang.
Right.
Ganun lang. Kasi basket of stocks na yan eh.
Right.
Yun. Ang IRA ko, isa lang index fund ko, yung total stock market index. Yun. So, ganun lang yung, so pag na-maximize ko na yung retirement, ang ano na ng mga retirement account, there's like a maximum amount you can invest.
I
Ganon.
see.
Then, kung ano ba, ang objective mo is to save for the education ng mga anak mo, so isang vehicle mo, isang account is to open a 529
Right.
carriage fund.
The
So what I'm
500.
trying to say is merong different accounts with different specific objective. So you really have to define kung ano yung financial goal mo.
Right.
Ngayon, kung ano ba naman goal mo, bumili ng kotse or something, so meron akong tinatawag na taxable account. Because pag nasa taxable account, you are walang penalty if you going to sell yung specific index fund to pay for something else, to buy, like say buy a car, o kaya you want to pay your vacation, okay? And usually I just sell yung parang kung ano yung profit or long-term capital gains ng specific index fund.
Right. And then in terms of that, Doc, like there's a big difference in short-term and long-term capital gains, as me and Kuya Wawi discussed previously. And thinking and looking at your experience, Doc, you seem to have like already at least have long-term gains. And whereas if you need to liquidate to fund, a little bit of expense, I'm pretty sure you're getting at a lower tax rate as well.
Yes, you have to really be conscious of tax. Dito sa States, you cannot get away with taxes.
Right.
Kasi you mentioned about two big difference, yung tinatawag na short-term capital gain tax and long-term capital gain tax. Kasi ang big difference depende sa tax rate mo, okay? Pag short-term capital gains, you will pay the tax, the ordinary tax. So kung ang tax bracket mo nasa 25% or 24% or then you have to pay 24%.
Right.
Unlike pag long-term capital gains, you have three tax category lang. 0, 15%, saka 20% yan, or 0, or 10, or 15. So three
Right.
categories lang depending sa tax rate mo.
Which are a lot less than a personal tax rate for sure.
Yep. So you at least wait for a year before you sell any kind of profit sa holdings mo. Is either kung individual stock or index fund.
Right. That's a really good advice to take note. Thank you, Doc, for sharing.
Yeah.
So to some of our listeners who have other questions for Doc Stephen, Doc, where can they reach you before we proceed to our next segment? Would you be okay sharing your email, probably, or?
Probably dun na lang sa site mo, yung sa US Phil, yung sa messenger mo. I think that's, I always follow yung yung group mo eh. So.
Okay. All right. So to our listeners, you could always reach to us here in our YouTube video. You can post your comment or send us a direct message and just request to be added in our Facebook Messenger group. You would be introduced to Dr. Stephen Pamatmat and Kuya Wawi as well, and to other active users in that Messenger group who are freely sharing their information and enthusiasm about the stock market and investing in it. Doc, so Kuya Wawi, are we good to proceed to our next segment?
Yes, I would just like to thank Dr. Stephen Pamatmat for sharing his experience and knowledge on index stock investing. That would really help a lot of our listeners, especially those who are still hesitating to invest. Know that stock index investing is one of the safest way to invest that I know of. In fact, that's where I started when Stephen Pamatmat himself showed me how to do it years ago. Thank you, Dr. Stephen Pamatmat.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Doc. Now it's like for me, I'm more aware of what the potential is in terms of investing in the index fund or ETF at least to have an exposure, because you're a living proof Like,
Yeah.
you
And,
can. Uh-huh. Yes, Doc.
and one thing also is, lalo kung nag start ka lang and you have limited funds, okay, you can open an account and like Fidelity, they offer zero or like $10. I mean, walang minimum
Mm.
to open an account. Yung mga anak ko kasi, nag-open sila ng Fidelity account eh. Hindi
Uh,
Robinhood, Fidelity,
yeah, there
because
you go.
yung sa mga allowance sila, they save. At least, tinuro ko sila mag-save kahit $10 a month,
Uh-huh.
$20 kung meron silang summer job. So, doon nila
Exactly.
ini-invest.
That's
Yeah.
really nice, Doc. You really have to start somewhere if you want to get to from point A to point B. You just have
Yeah.
to start.
At kasi ang Fidelity, they also offer yung tinatawag na zero expense ratio, zero commission ng meron ding mirror ng S&P 500 or total stock market. Ganun.
Wow. Okay. So to our listeners who are still with us, if you're liking this topic or subject, feel free to hit the subscribe button and like our show. That way you can show some support. So now we're going to proceed to our couple of other topics. Um, the next topics would be what's up with Wall Street. This would take so long. We would just breeze through it and discuss what our thoughts and what are the current events. A little bit of market sentiments and stock of the week, and also our quote of the week. So let's proceed. The next segment is what's up with Wall Street. So I'm gonna share my screen. If you don't mind, Doc Stephen, feel free to stay with us. That way we could also kind of like pick your brain
Yeah,
a little bit
sure.
in
Yeah.
our like a little bit of current events and share your thoughts if you want to.
Okay.
So I'm gonna share my screen to our YouTube viewers. For our podcast listeners, don't worry. We will discuss it accordingly, and we'll try to make it as simple as possible. So this is the screen I'm trying to share. Hopefully it shows up. So according to this week's market performance, we've hit another all-time high. Almost every day we've been hitting new all-time highs. In fact, S&P 500, as what Dr. Stephen has been sharing in the past few minutes, has posted its biggest weekly gain this week since February. Amazing. It's now at 4,280. And yung the Nasdaq, which is the tech companies index, so far has posted another record high at 14,000. So all throughout, as you can see this chart, it's just been going up, 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 up. What do you think, Kuya Wawi?
Yeah, well, looks like the market sentiment has been positive. Um, People are less worried about inflation, I guess, because of the data that's been coming in. Yung mga economic indicators have been good.
So broadly, the market is reacting positively. And while on the next table that I'm going to share to you guys, we're just going to breeze through it. Don't worry, guys. We'll go through this quickly. On the other hand, the crypto market has been suffering sort of. It's been down terribly for the past month. Bitcoin is, despite all the sayings, all the news lines that they're saying that the crash, Bitcoin is just down 12% for the past month. And
Yes, speculation.
Meron bang exposure sa crypto, Mark?
not at this point of time. How about you, Doc? Do you have any exposure to this crypto?
Hindi, wala. I don't bother about yung crypto. It's just
There you go.
masyadong old-fashioned. Just like I said, masyadong loyal sa S&P 500.
That's what I would have thought, Doc. You definitely, have shown us like the positivity and the long-term potential of like just sticking with what you know.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kuya
I
Wawi,
think
about the
out
crypto?
of the three of us, I'm the only one in the cryptocurrency market. But you benefit from it if you're an early adopter. If you got on it about 2 years ago, you'll be holding some. But really, it went down about 50% on Bitcoin
All
from
right.
last year. Yeah, from the high last year.
Yes, it was
So be
60,000
very
at one point.
careful investing in it. It's somewhat speculative right now, and there's really not use case at this point that's proven. But I think the government is allowing some of these developers
Mhm.
to develop their use cases for another 2 years. So they have to prove themselves.
Right.
Mm.
So there's still some promise in the crypto market, and it's definitely relatively new to most of the investors. So this is just a brief screenshot of the performance of different stocks in the market, energy sector, or this is the oil stocks had definitely been the outperformers for the past month, gaining 8% overall, while the basic materials or among copper, commodities, and all that, like lumber, has been falling. Like it's down -3% overall for the past month.
Yes.
So the next slide to our viewers and listeners as well. This is a chart that I kind of like felt wanting to share to most of our listeners because it says here, Gen Z takes on debt to invest in the stock market. So what do you guys think of this?
Well, my personal principle is I don't take loan to make an investment.
Right,
Kasi it's yung hedge mo masyadong riskier kung if you're going to take a loan. Actually, you should pay any your debt first before thinking about investing. Like yung mga credit card bills mo, dapat fully paid yun in each month. And
right.
don't just pay the minimum amount.
So interestingly, yeah, I think that would help because I think Doc, like for example, if you don't prioritize paying down your debt and then you're taking money from it, building more debt to invest. What if that investment turns out to be a flop? Then you're probably having a hard time coping up with paying that debt over time.
Yes. Especially
So
if you're just starting, yung mga millennials, or
right,
you really be
especially
extra cautious. Yeah.
exactly. And what's crazy about this information is like Gen Z, as I've Googled it, are the people who were born between 1997 to 2015. And they're the ones who are taking out, a lot of debt. Like it says here on the next chart, um, 38% of the 398 who were surveyed, like Gen Zers, took out personal loans or borrowed from family or went into credit card debt just to invest in the stock market.
Oh,
My
it's
fear
a
is
lot of risk taking.
yes. So it's kind of like probably a little bit on riskier side for sure that I would otherwise think about again of not doing instead. The next slide we have here is like the Federal Reserve passed all 23 banks during their stress test. Just a quote from the Vice Chair of Federal Reserve Supervision he said that over the past year, the Federal Reserve has run three stress tests with several different hypothetical recessions. And these are all 23 banks of the US have confirmed that the banking system is strongly positioned to support the ongoing recovery. As a result, banks were rallying. Like, for example, Wells Fargo went up as high as 3.2% on Friday, followed by Bank of America and Credit Suisse. Well, Credit Suisse is actually, I think, European bank company. So one of the technicalities for our listeners who are not familiar with the Fed stress test, basic information about it is like Federal Reserve, this is the bank of banks here in the US, the central bank. So they do annual stress tests every year and release their information at the last week of June or summer, at the start of summer. They usually tell the public what they think about the bank's liquidity here in the US if we are prone or if we are lacking capital or liquidity. So far so good. According to them, all of our 23 banks passed their test. So this is a chart from Bloomberg. It says here the Fed was just actually expecting a 4.5% capital ratio, but all of the big banks here in the US showed more than twice at least. Like, for example, the highest one is Morgan Stanley. It appears that they have plenty of cash in their balance sheet at 12.7%. So more likely in summary, mukhang solid banks, US banks are solid. And there's an article from Barron's I've read the other day after the announcement that banks are expected to announce no later than late Monday that they're going to start issuing more dividends and buybacks to their shareholders. So it just means there will be a dividend bump coming up or a payout, which is good overall to our bank investors. So this is another chart about the Fed stress test for those who are more into details. Projected losses, most of the losses will be coming from if we are, if, let's just say wala tayo, we didn't have the vaccine. Billions, almost 100 billion are expected to be lost in commercial loans. These are the commercial loans for like the malls, apartments, buildings, credit cards, almost, I'd say 90 billion expected losses. All of which, if this would have happened, like a terrible situation, US banks would still be able to provide liquidity to the market. So going on to the next slide, these are just flows that I'm looking at where the money is going actually from the market. So this is a Bank of America chart that was posted on Friday. It just shows here, we just had the largest week of outflows from banks. Well, this in contrast, this is a big outpour of money coming out of banks for some reason. What my thinking is, since we've been enjoying this all-time highs in tech, forgive my dog for barking. It looks like most of the people are pulling out money from banks and trying to invest in the tech, trying to catch up that trade. But as we proceed to our next slide, it would show here redemptions from tech as well have been outflowing. This is as of June of this year. So people are pulling out money, trying to invest elsewhere. And the next one, cash flow. This is like the cash, basic cash on the cash accounts of brokerages. We also just experienced large outflows. So basically, in these three charts that we have just shown you, it looks like people are pulling out money and trying to invest it on the next big thing. So it's just good to know, you don't want to base your investments just by looking at these charts. You would rather build your conviction, like what Doc Stephen has introduced to us earlier. You have to make sure that you know what you're doing. If you don't have the time to research specific companies, you might want to go with the path where Dr. Stephen has shown us, whereas he decided to choose the creme de la creme, like the index, like the ETFs that holds a broad, wide range of companies. Like what was that? The VTI. Correct me if I'm wrong, Doc. The VTI
Yeah, yung
holds that.
VTI or
Uh,
BU, kung Total
right.
Stock Market Index or S&P
So
500.
yeah. So for example, that stock index alone has like 3,660 companies on its belt. So if you bought a share of that fund, you'll be already investing in a lot of companies, like 3,600. So next slide. We're almost done with the segment of what's up with Wall Street. This is the sentiment. So this is the American uh, investors poll as of Friday. So it just shares here. This is bull over bear. So over time, we're actually trading, and then come 2021, we started just going up, up, up. So everything is like bullish at this point of time. Bullish meaning people are very optimistic of the stock market. During this time, Kuya Wawi also showed or shared his thoughts on the sentiment last week about the volatility index. Whereas we're going to take a look at that right now. The VIX, it's actually at 15.6. It's been relatively, look at that. It's just been going down. So it's down 24% just this week alone. It means people are not afraid. People are bullish. During this time, what do you think, Doc? What are your thoughts having this kind of like sentiment in our markets? Like people are just, positive.
Well, it's good, but there's always need to be cautious. Okay,
Mhm.
uh, just like I said, I seen this before. In
Let's go.
1993, I started. Merong 2000, then yung mga tech bubble.
It's during
So
1999, I think, yes, Doc.
yeah, so well, that's the reason you just have to have good allocation. Meron kang emergency funds,
Right.
tapos you pay your credit card on time,
Mhm.
and but stay along, okay? Always stay the course. But yung nga, dapat meron kang adequate allocation sa mga financial obligations mo.
Right. That's
You
a very
mentioned
good.
about
Mhm.
yung sa stress test ng mga banks.
Right, Doc.
I think they learned their lesson when there was a financial crisis.
Exactly. Yes.
Kaya the federal government mandated them to have this routine stress test para
Right.
they don't have the same went back to the history that we had a financial crisis again.
Exactly. Like these are the banks, like biggest of the big banks in the US, in the whole world, and them them themselves, they're setting aside money just in case of emergency. What more of an individual person who
Yep,
doesn't have
exactly.
any savings or cash to withstand like down times? So it's not always sunshine and rainbows, like what they
Yes.
say.
Mm.
So that's one thing that Doc Stephen would like to share to our listeners. Always be prepared. Have something, like have an emergency fund at least. So this is another chart saying the same thing. The fear greed index, to our listeners who don't see this chart, don't worry. So right now it's a little above 40, but this chart goes up until 100 in terms of like the bullish of bullish times. So the volatility, Koyawawi's index, volatility index is showing a lot bullish, but this one interestingly shows a little bit more bullish, but not that much. Um, okay. So going to our next segment, this is the stock of the week that I would like to highlight and to our listeners. This stock debuted just yesterday. It's called Mr. Car Wash. That's the company's name. So by its name itself, it's the car wash company that just went public, and people now can buy its shares. So just to give you guys, to our listeners, little bit information about this company. So they just went public yesterday. As an investor, if you have a brokerage account, you can actually buy its shares. But listen to this information before you decide to jump in on the latest train ride. So this stock rose 35% yesterday from $18.90 to $20.35 at closing. So as a result, the company is now valued somewhere $5.6 billion. This company, in its history, it started in 1996. It now has 344 car wash locations in 21 states here in the US, with 6,000 employees, with its headquarters in Tucson, Arizona. According to its CEO and president, John Lai, he said in an interview, we're the world's largest car wash company, and we wash more cars than anybody. We have less than 5% market share, so the upside potential feels infinite. Um, Further, he said that we are going to continue to reinvest. This is about the money that they have raised. We are continue to reinvest in our infrastructure. We're gonna pay down some debt. So take notes, some debt. So they're not gonna pay the money they have raised from the IPO, which is amounts to $560 million. They're gonna use some of that to pay down some of their debt. Get a In addition, they he wants to get a rock solid balance sheet and set ourselves up for continued growth, because for us this is just the beginning. So looking at their balance sheet, to our listeners, this is called the SEC Form 1. So not to get into too much technicalities, so we're just briefly going through it. um, these are their numbers. For our listeners, don't worry, we calculated the total debt of the company, and it was around 465 million as of recent filing, and they were able to raise 560. But take note the CEO's wording. So they might not use the entire money that they raised to pay down their debt. They want to grow. So which is, good. The problem is at this point of time, they're valued at 5 billion going back. 5 billion. Looking at their recent filing, they only made $575 million in 2020. This is during the pandemic. So 5 billion over 570, that gives you just a perspective of 9 times price to sales valuation. So where am I going with this valuation? The main reason why I brought that up is because like comparing it to more established companies. So Mr. Car Wash, for me, if you're gonna ask me, is definitely overvalued. I'm pulling up my favorite. No, this is not investment advice. So price to sales of Apple in comparison is around 7 times. So a car wash company that only does car wash business is now selling for more than Apple, which is more established. So my plain advice would be try to stay on the sidelines and try not to jump into this latest trend. What do you guys think?
Well, I would definitely keep this on my watch list.
Mhm.
Um, like you said, masyadong mataas ang valuation eh. So,
Right.
Well, for me, I do own some individual stocks, but most of them are established companies like Apple.
Right.
But if I choose a company, that's a good point. I have to look at their profitability. Then, kung at saka kung yung mismong company diversified yung kanilang product like Apple,
Uh-huh.
they have computers, they have cloud services. Kumbaga, yung Apple mismo are already a diversified company in
Right.
terms of the products they're selling. Then, ang kanilang customer not only in the States but worldwide. So, yung market exposure na potential um, customers, hindi lang dito. Unlike itong Mr. Carwas, isa lang service ang kanilang ino-offer.
Exactly.
So that's the way I look at it. Yeah.
I think that's a good way, definitely, Doc.
I agree.
Mhm.
So, maraming car wash companies, but what makes this car wash company different from others? What's the differentiator?
Mhm. I think it's they're just broadly having owning 5% market share in the US. I think that's their main edge, and looks like the president and CEO is definitely looking to ramping up. So that means more capital expense ahead of them for sure.
Yeah.
And okay, so the next
So they're
hour,
in their growth stage.
yes, so they are in their growth stage definitely. So they're about to spend more, and probably when you spend more, you don't get to keep more for your shareholders. So that's a little bit thing to watch out for. And I guess we're gonna jump on to our next segment to our listeners who are joining us just now. Um, we would like to let you guys know that for the first time we have our first ever guest, and it's Dr. Stephen Pamatmat. Please try to listen to his discussion about index investing and the risk, and the potential gains in the over the long term using this investment approach. So to our next segment, Kuya Wawi, Doc Stephen, do you have any book recommendations to our listeners?
You know what? My first financial book was The Personal Finance for the Dummies.
Personal Finance for Dummies. Wow.
It's a $20 book during my time, but it's one of the best investments that I made.
So it kind of like, did it help you understanding, Doc Stephen, like the terminologies and whatnot?
Yeah, yung nagsisimula, I was so naive about investing. So sa mga beginner, I think this is a good one.
Right. Basic starts with the basic. You can just go ahead and jump on to like buying stocks without any knowledge of
Yeah.
what you're doing, right?
But nowadays, because well-known na yung mga itong mga internet, so I go to this White Coat Investor website. Ang
Mhm.
founder niya is si Dr. Jim Dahl, and I learned a lot from that website,
White coat,
whitecoatinvestor.com.
whitecoatinvestor.com. I see.
Yeah, si Dr. Dahl ang founder niyan eh. So meron siyang he has Facebook, then blog, and so this is more detailed, like those who really wants to learn about investing.
Right.
Okay.
I think breezing through its website, also discussed some things about taxes and
Yes.
some
So
information
it's,
about IRA.
yeah, a lot of things. Then so this might be a good resource. And so the founders, yung video ng founders, si Dr. Dahl, siya yung ano. So I'm just one of his listeners and follower. Uh, this is not just for the doctors. I mean, everyone is free to join in terms of this group.
Right. And before we end our podcast today, Doc Stephen, do you have any quote for our listeners to go by?
Well, when it comes to investing, just make it simple and live your life.
There you go. How about you, Kiyowawi? Do you have any quotes for our listeners?
Well, I'm just pulling from Dave Ramsey,
Okay.
and this kind of relates to what Dr. Stephen was saying. So Dave Ramsey said, "You've got to tell your money what to do, or it will leave. You have to have your goals."
It basically means that you have to have your direction and goals. Where do you what do you want to do with your money, or else it will just leave you
Yes.
alone.
You got to tell your money what to do.
Right. Well, I totally agree with that. A good goal always, sets your future straight somehow, or provides guideposts to where you're gonna go. Well, before we end, I would like to personally thank you, Doc Stephen Pamatmat, for sharing your valuable time this morning. I know as a physician and especially specialized in kidneys, nephrologist, I mean that takes a lot of time just to provide to your patients. And me and Kuyawawi truly appreciate your time this morning, Doc.
Thank you for having me also, and happy to share my own knowledge to our kababayans.
Thank you, Doc. And to our listeners, for our next week's episode, me and Kuyawawi are thinking of sharing some of our, top stock picks. In addition, of course, moving forward, we're always gonna consider index investing, as shared by Dr. Matmat. Right. So before we sign out, I would like just to say, don't forget to hit subscribe and like on our YouTube video, and we appreciate your time today. This is Mark Yu signing out.
This is Wawi Santos signing out. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. I think it turned out to be okay.